It's a Saturday. What are we doing on the Saturday? We're talking about rugby league because it is 4020 not live, and we're going to Canada, Phil, because as you may remember, there used to be a team there, which aren't there anymore. The old Toronto Wolfpack, but there are bigger things afoot across the Great Pond in the Great White North. The dominant partner of the Americans and the ones with more sense, it seems, at least in the last few years.
Well, every time I turn my television on at the moment, which is obviously far too often, the same as everybody else, it seems to me that somebody's doing a travel program, or they've dug up somebody who did a travel program 15 years ago and put it out again. So it makes sense for us to go across the pond. It ties in with the latest issue of Forty20 Magazine, available because I think we felt when we sat down to fill the February issue, which normally would have been full of the start of action on the field, that it gave us, if you like, the last chance before that happens to do some features that we haven't been able to. And it struck me that the Wolfpack story's been told from a number of angles, but the one place we haven't been to gauge reaction is actually in Canada. And the thinking behind that was, it's all very well having an opinion here over what value a foreign team brings to a domestic competition, but we created this team that attracted 10,000 people to it, which I think we now know is incontrovertible.
Cardboard.
And they've been disenfranchised. But what does that mean? What does it mean for them in the fact that have they been turned off something that they just come to love? But what does it mean for the sport as well? You know, what have we actually lost or dispensed with, rather than just a team not being in a division anymore? And I think that's where this whole debate comes from, and I think from that you can then reach out to the author of the report, who's taken soundings across a range of people who used to go to the games. But what's left? You know, what have Canadian Rugby League got to salvage from all of that, or to move on from? And are they in a healthier or a worse place because of what's happened? And I think that's all the thinking behind this extra programme, as well as keeps me off social media for a couple of hours, which can only be a good thing.
Well, we're going to hear from Nicholas Mew, of course, a long-time listener to the programme back in our olden days, who's written in the current issue of 4020 Magazine out now. He's going to be on in a bit, but first, we're actually going to hear from someone who hopefully will potentially be seen in the World Cup, which is coming up. Looking forward to it in November. And this goes back, actually, I was just looking back at the messages, to October last year when we had Avery on. Carl Holmes, who's the Vice President of the Ontario Rugby League, which sounds a very grandiose title. I hope he gets, like his namesake over here, I hope he gets some chains for it. I should have asked him, and I didn't, because obviously this is pre-recording afterwards. So Carl Holmes, who's from Castleford, but somehow has ended up in Castleford, and one of the players of the Canadian Ravens who took on Serbia a couple of years ago, telling us about her story and her journey into rugby league, who is Krista Kent, and here they are now.
I would guess that the first question to both of you is, you know, we have an idea of the size of the country. We have no idea how big rugby league figures within that country, or the distances between cities that we've heard of. So you're both attached to Ontario. What's the rugby league scene like over there, for want of a better word?
Who's taking it, Krista? Me?
To both of you, in your respective spheres of influence.
Well, I can only speak so much on the women's side, since I've been involved since the first women's practice in 2017, amping up for the World Cup then. And there's been so much movement since, with the Wolfpack gaining some traction there for us. We've recently been able to develop 2 teams that were ready to play against each other across Ontario, have a couple games, and then a final tournament style play at the end. So I was really excited to have that, just some competition there on the women's side. And then that's in Ontario. And then the men also have a couple teams, the Broncos and the Saints, that play against each other, and they had their own cup the last time we were allowed to play in BC and out in BC, there's definitely more of a following for rugby league. I mean, just having the weather that they do, being able to play all year round, is great. And I think the best strategy that they went forward with is it's like you have two seasons in BC. You have a rugby league season and you have a rugby union season. So they're not competing for the same players. They have found a way to work together symbiotically. And I think something like that is what we've taken forward. We can't exactly, due to our weather restrictions, have two different seasons, although I'd love to play all year round. Instead, Saturdays are for rugby union and Sundays are rugby league. And that's what we've been going forward with.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, so obviously you've got Ontario, which is the east. You've got Alberta, middle, and then you've got your BC, which is west. I think there's about 6 teams in the BC, not too sure about Alberta. And then like Krista said, the start of the 2020 season, there was 2 teams that was looking at reforming a 3rd team for the men's. And we had 2 women's teams lined up to go. We also had the Masters team, 31 members there, and we had about 100 kids for the Alderman Wolfpack. That's what we had going into 2020. Obviously, COVID put a stop to that. I should also say November wasn't the only ray of sunshine, because we had the East and West game in January. And that was a fantastic event. It was held at Lamport. I think it's probably the first rugby league match to be held under an inflatable dome. We managed to get the posts in. There was one rule change, and that was if the ball hit the dome, it was a scrum, head and feed defending team. And I can't recall. I don't think it ever happened. So we didn't even have to call that rule into play. And so, like I say, we did play rugby league in January. Freezing temperatures outside. We were all nice and safely warm in the bubble there. And that was a great occasion. I was a privilege. I was on the coaching staff. I coached Krista there. That was a great experience.
A fine job.
What was that like then, Chris? What was that like, Krista, playing under the dome then? Completely alien conditions for everyone, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was different. I mean, I was just excited to be out of the weather, I suppose. But me being very heavily forward influenced, I mean, the most you'll see me kick usually is a bit of a chip. So it didn't exactly affect my gameplay at all or strategy. But it was just great to see 2 teams come together. I knew a lot of the women before because I was had the privilege to go on the Ravens Serbia tour back in 2019. So it was a great reunion, and it was the first annual event of many that I'm excited about to see just the talent from the East and West come together.
I mean, it's fairly easy for. Oh, sorry, Carl.
Oh, no. I was just saying. In that match, we had around 6 to 8 weeks to put an East team together, and that's a blend of seasoned rugby players like Krista to people who've never picked up a ball. We had everyone there, and we had 6 to 8 weeks to put a competitive team onto the field. And I only got involved because I came down one day. I wanted to take a look at the Brantford Broncos men who were trying out for the East men's side. And I got called up by the head coach. He says, come and have a look at my project. So I came down. I saw Krista and the gang running around the field. He says, yeah, I've got 6 to 8 weeks to turn this team into a competitive team in January. He says, do you fancy helping me? I says, okay. He says, you're from Manchester, but what the heck? Right? So, and that's how it came about. And I think we did pretty well. Although, I must admit, I shouldn't really say this, but the first 20 minutes was probably the worst rugby league I've seen played ever. We had 0 completion. in the first 20 minutes, it was torture. But credit to the women that they hung in, really hung in. The West team only put 14 points on them in that period, and we gradually got back in the game, and we just got touched off 24-18. But another 2 or 3 minutes, we'd have had them. But that first 20 minutes, it took some character. I mean, the 20 minutes, 0 completion. The energy, what you guys must have used was incredible. I sure used it on the sidelines. I was going crazy. But, it was just brilliant. I was just really privileged and happy and proud of these people, right? And that's for the men as well.
I think now would be a good time to get some background on the two of you. I'm guessing Krista's from Canada. I'm guessing Carl isn't. So I don't know if Krista wants to go first. How have you got him to this stage and being involved in rugby league, so enthusiastic about it? And how did you come across a sport that isn't native to your land and taken to it?
You have great deductive skills, eh?
You can tell I've watched Inspector Morse.
So I was playing rugby union for 15 years before I discovered league. My partner at the time played for the Canada Wolverines, the men's side. And I never knew this world existed, this culture existed, to be quite honest. And I was very excited to learn about it and get involved because I fell in love with rugby now 15 years ago. And learning league, which is a similar sport but has its own amazing nuances, it just ignited a whole new fire inside me. And I was falling in love with the sport all over again. So I immediately got involved as soon as we had a foundation. I was there at the first practice. I'll be at the last that I can. And since then, like I said, I've had the privilege to travel with the Ravens, be a part of the Ontario Rugby League as their equipment manager. And I'm just excited for what the future holds, and to what capacity I can contribute. I'm looking forward to.
I think you've been fairly modest there, Krista, in your enthusiasm for rugby. You're missing a vital piece of the story out, i.e. your little companion.
Oh, I mean, yes, rugby is my life. I did decide to quit my 9-to-5 job to train full time for this World Cup, give myself the best chance to make the squad. And I also, during this pandemic, got this little guy whose name is Scrum. And he's just as much of my world as rugby is. I've trained him all with rugby terms. Line out when he wants up. When he's good, I say play on. When I throw a toy, I say tackle, and then he'll go attack it. And little colloquiums like that. So I think that's what Carl was referring to.
I think it's brilliant.
Phil will know that Scrum's probably more eloquent than most rugby league pundits over here. Naming no names, of course.
Carl's background sounds like Yorkshire to me.
You got it in one, Phil. Yeah. Kippocks, so West Yorkshire. That's where I was born. Moved to Canada 2013. Makes me cry, actually, to think that I've been a Castleford Tigers fan since about 1986, and I moved to Canada in 2013, and they go and do that amazing feat in 2017, and I couldn't be part of it. I couldn't get to the final. I didn't see any of the games live. I watched it obviously all on TV. That's just my luck. But I kind of got involved with Canadian Rugby League. It was 2019. I'd had a bit of anxiety problems, and I just basically one day I thought, you know what, I need to get out. I need to go do something. What can I do? I thought, well, I love rugby league. Let's see if there's anything local around, and I'll just go and help out. So I got in contact with Steve Piatic, Brantford Broncos, came down to one of their practices, and I basically started doing a bit of coaching advisory role for those guys for the 2019 season. So I did that. Obviously, then fast forward to the end of 2019, I decided to go down into Toronto there to check on the Brantford Broncos guys, how they were getting on for the East tryout. And the guy, Dave Astley, the head coach for the women's, he approached me and said, you know, do you fancy coming on board as an assistant coach and helping me out with the women's side? So I said, yes. So I did that. It was a privilege and honour to be a part of that. Loved it. And then in February 2020, I became the vice president of the ORL on a 3-year term. Obviously, probably some of the worst timing in the world there, because as soon as we got his positions, COVID struck, right? So 2020 was just a bit of a nothing year. But like Krista says, we're very excited for what the future holds. You know, we had 3 men's teams hopefully and 2 women's teams. Masters is crazy. The 31 members at the minute they're standing at, that's just going to gain so much traction, to the feeling that I've got to have a serious think about it, and it might be the way we gain more interest is actually using the Masters to broaden the umbrella, and then everything's going to trickle down. I've got to really have a serious think about that, how we're going to expand it. But yeah, Masters is just, the appetite for it is insane. I can't believe it. And that's really my background, so to speak.
You've mentioned the World Cup coming up, Krista, and training for it. As we're hoping, obviously everything goes ahead to as planned. If it does go ahead as planned, Canada 5th in the world rankings. They get to play England in the group stage at Anfield, the home of Liverpool Football Club, the biggest stage of a women's game in this country there's ever been. That must be a big carrot at the end of the stick for anyone training, hoping to train on for that Canada squad.
Absolutely. I definitely have a fire inside me for it, even though I always have that for rugby. But just being able to represent this nation on that sort of platform is an incredible privilege and something I look forward to. We saw Canada come out in the last World Cup in 2017 and give it their best go. I think they smashed it with the type of program, the people that were involved and selected to go. It was a great showing. You know, that game against Papua New Guinea, it gave us hope for the future. I think that anyone that would underestimate Canada coming to this stage, to the England 2021 World Cup, would be sadly mistaken. I think we drew a great pool. It's going to be some amazing, healthy competition. And I'm excited to see what we can do. I'm very hopeful for gold. I think we have a great shot. And I just can't wait to prove it and show the world what we have to offer rugby league, to show the world how much we've developed, what we've put in place to grow this sport, no matter what's going on in the world. You know, the World Cup is definitely a ray of hope for everyone, for a bit of normalcy when it comes to rugby, getting back together. I'm the president for my union club, and we only have a women's side. We're the only women's side independent across Ontario. I'm not sure about the rest of the country. So even that comes with its own struggles with recruitment and retention, especially in this unknown time. And I think the World Cup it is just something to look forward to. Knowing that it's going forward as well. I think it's a great opportunity to bring the world together, and I'll let everyone know that contact sport isn't going anywhere.
I mean, we hope that World Cups are going to be every 4 years. If you look back at the history of rugby league, we could play another one tomorrow and then not play one for 10. It's just the way we are. But it seems to be in a cycle. So presumably in those intervening years, you need opposition that can also improve your play on the field, but raise the profile off the field. And there is some work going on at the moment, I know, in the USA about getting women's teams formed. How important, if you could have an American conference championship and every couple of years you could play the two great rivals against each other, maybe throwing a Caribbean team in there as well. Is that how we look to develop the sport in your part of the world, do you think?
So it's funny you mentioned that, actually, because in 2019 we had the first America Nines, so we didn't exactly have enough of a foundation for, especially on the women's side, because we wanted women and men to have the same amount of competition to field the 13. But we had an America Nines tournament, and so it was Jamaica, Ontario, and Canada for the women's side, and I believe there was 4 teams for the men's side that competed. And we hoped to have that. I'm not sure how often we were looking into hosting that again. Maybe it being in America next time, perhaps Jamaica, who knows? But that is something that was organized. It was an amazing experience. And yeah, seeing what the States are doing down there definitely has our interest. We have looked to slowly expand and start teams in other provinces, other areas of Canada. I know Carl has been talking to Ottawa a bit, or knows a bit more on that, and them developing some competition for us. And then, like I said, BC and Alberta have a great foundation already. So yeah, it's happened, it's growing, and I love that the word has traveled across the pond all the way to you guys when it comes to rugby league developing in America.
Yeah, just to touch on that, before COVID closed everything down, the ORL was in contact with Ottawa Racers, Eric Perez. And there were some exciting developments. I obviously can't go into them because obviously everything's shut down now, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Ottawa Racers. But if they come back in and we can pick up the talks that we had, there's going to be some exciting development work coming on in Canada for the men's, women's programs for sure. It's going to be really exciting. There's going to be plenty of action happening this side of the pond. That is for certain.
You mentioned Ottawa Races, and of course there is an elephant in this room amongst the 4 of us, and well, I guess we have to look at it from your point of view rather than ours. You no doubt will have seen some of the press that Toronto's expulsion from Super League met with over here, particularly amongst expansionists. I think I'd safely talk for Richard and say that we've always been looking to spread the game as wide as possible. We thought it was a real blight on where the sport was going, but I'm not sure we've taken into account enough the impact it's had on people like yourselves on the ground, and how much a focus was having a professional rugby league team, and how much of a blow is it that you don't now have that infrastructure to graft onto?
Who was okay? So 2 things. I'm not a Wolfpack fan, neutral. Very disappointed that what happened to him, but also I don't think the Wolfpack did themselves any favours. I think they went too quick. They went through the leagues far too quickly and got into Super League, I think, just a little bit too quick. There was no infrastructure below them. No academy set up, no nothing like that. I think if they just took a little bit more time and got us involved and got an academy going and built it up, I think they'd have been in a far better position. And I think they'd have been accepted more in the UK. So with the Wolfpack going, how does it affect us? Well, as I said, they never really got an academy going. We wasn't really in contact. Yes, we was hopefully going to have as men and women play curtain raisers before a Super League game. That would have been fantastic. The crowds would have been coming in before. So basically, yeah, it's happened, but we're just going to carry on as normal and get through it. You know, hopefully Ottawa Racers will come on. I've got a feeling that they're going to do things a little bit different. They've already said they're going to get some Canadian players on there. They're going to offer some Canadian contracts. So that's really good news. And that's my view on it. I mean, from a neutral perspective, Super League are missing out on a massive opportunity. I mean, I've been to the ground. They were getting 10,000 people, right? And Castleford has struggled to get that on a normal game. Let's not face it. And I also think we could have had a magic weekend here. Held it at Toronto Football Club. You know, maybe not the first year, but if they did it a second year, it would have probably been the best attended magic weekend we'd have had. Because the fans go on about how good Newcastle is with the nightlife and the restaurants and stuff. You come to Toronto, the fans won't want to leave. You've got all the nightlife. They'll probably be able to catch a baseball game. You know, it'd be a fantastic event. And I just think the Rugby League, we've just missed out. We've missed out. But we've got to get on, and we will do. And the only people I feel sorry for is the Toronto Wolfpack fans. I mean, they've got no club now, and the kids. I mean, the guys who are attached to the Alderman Wolfpack, some of the players used to come down, so they were seen as their heroes. I mean, how do you explain now to that kid that they no longer have a club? It must have been heartbreaking for those guys. But as ORL, we keep on going. It may have made his job a little bit tougher, but hey, we're gonna keep going. It's 2021 now, and the COVID's just going to be over hopefully this year, and we've got plenty to look forward to, and we'll just build slowly. That's all we can do. If we can get 6 to 8 teams after I leave my term, I'm happy. And if I get the same amount of women's and plenty of masters teams and the kids join in, I'm an happy guy.
I'm just waiting for my dog to start barking because there's some dogs running into the garden. There you go. She's about to start now. She's a bit bigger than Scrummy Sky, but she's behaving at the minute. It's kind of hard to comprehend. You mentioned, how big Canada is as a country. As somebody who's never been to Toronto and barely left this country, it's hard to comprehend just how big Toronto is as a city, and I guess how the Wolfpack were able to draw those crowds in a city which has got a lot of other attractions to compete with.
Well, it wouldn't just be a city, Richard. It'd be a country, an whole country behind them. Like the Blue Jays, if they get to the playoffs, the country goes behind them. And I would have dared to say if Wolfpack had got anywhere near those Super League playoffs, the whole country are behind them. You're talking about viewing figures. It won't be 2 counties in England or 3 counties in England. It'd be the full country tuning in to watch that team. No matter if they've not watched the sport before, they will support their Canadian athletes when they are doing really well. And they'd have got behind them. And the travel. I mean, you say Canada's vast. I'm still trying to get my head around it. I think Ontario, UK can go into Ontario about 4.5 times. Don't quote me on that, but it's something crazy. I can't get my head around how big this place is, right? But to North Americans, traveling is nothing to them. So you'll get somebody from Vancouver who'd fly over to watch the Wolfpack. They come from Alberta into Toronto to watch the Wolfpack. It's nothing to them.
It's a different mindset. I mean, I know people that travel 2 hours by transit to get to work, whereas I had a partner that was from France, and, traveling anywhere 30 minutes was a voyage, right? So I think that people are willing to go places for what they care about. And,
I mean,
the games were in the heart of downtown Toronto, so that was just a great move for them.
Do they have the equivalent of the M62 on a Friday night though in Toronto? That's the big thing, because that's the killer for us. We can't go from Leeds to Wigan. That's not happening. Not on a Friday night.
Mate, it's worse. It's like it's M62 on steroids. It's crazy, the traffic on a any weeknight. It's crazy. But the way to do it, like if I'm going to the Wolfpack game or the Blue Jays, I'll jump on the transit. I'll drive about 40 minutes to the transit station, get on there, straight down. Takes about 40 minutes on the train, and I'm a 10-minute walk to the ground.
Meet some friends on the way. Have a chat, and I'd say the public transit system is it's well connected. So if I get on that train, I stop there, I can get off to the Wolfpack. The next stop up, get off there, go to the Blue Jays. So you're pretty well connected. It's just the time it takes to get there.
I think the other thing, and Krista will probably, is events. I think you know, weekend. We've got a grand sport being an event, so the beer festivals at Lamport are all part of the game, meeting up beforehand. The result becomes less material to having a. What sort of what should the sport of rugby league do to embrace the way that you would watch it, but make it even more inclusive than it is at the moment, more of a spectacle regular basis than the exception?
You were breaking up a bit on my end for that question. But I'll try to push out an answer from what I heard. So you're asking what from someone in the stands, what can rugby league bring to the atmosphere, or what would I want to see? Sorry, could you clarify?
What is the spectator over here? So what more do we need to do?
I think basically what Phil's trying to say is, I think, without trying to translate him because he's breaking up, what do we need to do to sell events more to people than we currently do? Because at the moment over here, basically we say, come and watch a rugby match, and we don't do anything else to make it an event. That's basically all we do over here.
Right. Well, I think they did do a great job there was like a beer garden area where people would socialize. There was a VIP area that there was like free drinks and food, and then in the stands itself there was also just a huge following, their own little fan club. People would dress up in furs and banging drums, so that added a lot to the atmosphere as it was. I'd say that something to generate more people to come to the sport. I mean, you have to get the word out there. I think appealing to union clubs working together instead of having such a divide is so important. I think there was a missed opportunity there, reaching out to already an established sport in Ontario, across Canada, that people are so passionate about being rugby union. If they could have included the drawn from that more, that would have been great. Having gatherings like more of a tailgate scenario would have been awesome. I mean, Ford, our mayor, did bring in some bylaws that allowed that type of atmosphere to take place. So if rugby league continued, I have no doubts that there would have been some gatherings in parking lots and people just learning more about the game from each other, and creating those opportunities and moments. I mean, what I love about rugby is, and this is one of my main selling points to anyone that will have a conversation with me, is that beer up after the game. I think that's something special that, from my understanding, no other sport has. Being able to leave it all on the field, no matter who you were cheering for, who you were playing for, taking your opposite out to a bar, buying them a drink, complimenting them on that one tackle that absolutely you'll be feeling for the next week. I think that's something special. And if we added that element and even publicize, oh, hey, by the way, like, these are the sponsored bars afterwards, please head there after the game, and there's going to be, you know, after social, just like the players would have. That would be an interesting way to open up the world of Canada to rugby league even more.
More socializing. That's what we need. That's what we.
Especially now.
It's that inclusivity we need more of, to just get people involved and say, look, come and have a go, come and enjoy yourself. And I think sometimes, you know, as Phil will know, and Carl, obviously you've been over here, you've seen how things are. Sometimes we are a bit exclusive. We don't want people to know about rugby league. We don't want people to get involved because we've got our own little fiefdoms. We don't want to lose any power.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, everyone wants to keep it, right? The Castleford people want to keep it in Castleford and you know, protect it. Not realising that if they just opened up those barriers, broke them down a little bit, we could have an even better product. And Castleford would, you know, benefit from that. And like you said, in Canada, we are inclusive. Anyone can step, like I said, when Krista tried out for the East game, anyone could turn up to that trial. They didn't have to pick up a rugby ball. They didn't even need to know what it was. They could come. We wouldn't judge them. They'd have a good time afterwards. Maybe have a couple of drinks with the people, and that's it. If they wanted to come back, they'll come back, and we judge them on the performances on the training. We're not sat there, we're not laughing, we're not judging, anything like that, you know. And you know, we include everyone. We're happy to have, because obviously we're not in no position to turn anyone away anyway. So we're happy to have people come to us, and we will teach them about the game. I'm happy if Krista calls me and she wants to learn something. It's a thrill for me. I'm passing on what I know. If somebody who hasn't even picked up a rugby ball and I'm teaching them the game, and I'm saying, you know what, if you like this, go on YouTube and watch a few Super League games. You know, I hate in Canada. This is one of my bugbears in Canada, is if somebody says if you like it, they're going to say, well, watch an NRL game. NRL, they know the NRL teams. Super League teams, they don't really know. And that's another thing, right? We had a chance again of them getting recognised, right? So I obviously push them towards the Super League because I've got more affinities to Super League. And that was another shame of them, what they did with the Wolfpackers too. We were just getting people learning the Huddersfield Giants, the Wigan Warriors, you know, these guys. And now it's Canberra Raiders, Melbourne Storm, you know.
And I think it's great Castleford fans still reflect rhinos as well. I think that's absolutely how it should be. The other thing that both of you are confirming is something that we discussed with Avery when he was on the programme, and that is that there is no historic animosity between rugby league and rugby union. They exist in harmony, but also for the mutual benefit of each other. How important is that? Because Carl will know this, Richard experiences it, Krista isn't even touched by it. We spend too much time worrying about you two.
Okay, I think you were breaking up again there, Phil, but I think I got the gist. I'll just
See, we get a perfect connection to Canada, but can't get a perfect connection to Leeds. It's shocking.
That's it, right? It's crazy. It's Leeds. You mentioned Leeds, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. The this hasn't been finalised yet, but I know. So the Masters, they're based out of Brampton Rugby Union Club, so we use their sports facilities. ORL, that we're looking at basing our operations out of the Rugby Union Club, out of their sports club, right? So that's how close we work together. The Brantford Rugby Union, they're willing, they've got players, and they want to form a rugby league side. So Rugby Union is basically really willing to work with Rugby League here. There is no, like you say, there's no history. There's none of this turning the backs on it. It's great to see, actually, because we do need the Rugby Union clubs here to survive, because we need some of the rugby players, right? And like I say, if they can play Rugby Union on a Saturday and League on a Sunday, that's what it's got to be until League can get the numbers where we don't rely so much on Rugby Union, but we would still support the Rugby Union teams. We have to, because they're supporting us from the start.
Yeah, the only sort of rep that Rugby League has in the greater rugby union population is that, it's it's not real rugby. You don't have rucks. You don't have lineouts and whatnot, because they don't understand the other fundamentals of the game, because they're just not they just haven't been exposed to it as much yet. So, I mean, I always try to look at the positive and how I can recruit people to the game, and so we can work together, Rugby League, Rugby Union in tandem. And talking to Carl, it was a really interesting development when he was looking at his strategy of growing the sport, starting from masters and working down, sort of the opposite of what people think. Let's start with a juniors program. Eventually, they'll feed into the men-women's side. But yeah, starting from the masters, it's like, okay, so if union players have an idea that rugby league is a bit softer or something, which is not the case, of course, you all know that, then perhaps we can try to be like, okay, well, you're thinking of retiring from rugby union. Maybe you should come over and try rugby league then, not so many scrums. You've been a front row your whole life. It'll be a little easier on your joints or whatnot. And that could be an interesting way of bringing them over, and also just merging the two dichotomies to just continue and just have people continuing to play sports, right? So I think that's an interesting way to approach it and break down that dividing line.
I'm intrigued because obviously, Carl, you say you watched Cast since '86, so you'd have grown up with the likes of John Joyner or whoever would have been your heroes down at the lane. And you obviously the likes of Scoey and Ellery Hanley playing for Great Britain, although not when they're in Leeds jerseys, of course. I mean, Krista's got none of this baggage of everyone hating Leeds. It's great. Well, I'm sure Carl will indoctrinate you into it at some point. But are there any players, Krista, who you've been watching clips of on YouTube or whatever to gain some kind of knowledge of rugby league in your time having switched from Union?
Ranky, cheers.
I would watch a bit on the weekends and the mornings, for sure. But my main focus is watching the women's teams and the women's sides and learning that game. Because there are subtle differences in strategy, the way they approach each other. So I haven't looked into Super League as much as I should, or identified and looked up to certain players as who I want to mirror my own abilities after. It's really just focusing on that goal and my competition in and who I'm going to be facing. So unfortunately, I don't have anyone to pull out a jersey and be like, this guy.
It's pretty simple, Krista. Blue and yellow? No. Black and amber? Yeah.
If only we could all agree.
Exactly. No, it's.
And another expat who's doing big things with Canadian Rugby League, I assume somebody you know pretty well, Bob Jowett from Bradford, President Canadian Rugby League. Again, has he got some plans that can feed into what you're doing that you think that'll help you?
He's actually he's going to be one of my teammates on the Greybeards too. Is Bob. We haven't really talked. We've been busy with the Greybeard stuff, but yeah, there'll definitely be things what Bob's working on that will help ORL. That is for certain. But to be honest, I haven't had contact for a little time with the Rugby League. Since COVID. It kind of closed everything down because obviously we're a charity organisation, voluntary organisation, so people do what they can with the time they've got, right? So he hasn't shared any plans. He'll share plans when they're concrete, and I think that's the best way to do things. He isn't going to share what his thoughts, but from what they've done, I know they've brought in a guy, Dan Tate. He's going to be a development officer now, so they've got that part. They're making changes on their side, which is definitely going to make ORL job easier in the long run, for sure. He's making subtle changes there, which is going to make my job and hopefully Krista's participation is going to be a lot better. There's going to be more opportunities. That's for certain. I can see that side happening now.
I know he's extremely keen on fostering the women's game as well. So I would imagine the Ravens and how you do in the World Cup will be vitally important for him to be able to roll out more of his programs.
Oh, for sure. I think. Like I'm really excited over the women's. The women's side really took me by surprise on the appetite for it over here, and yeah, we share a common goal there. Me and Bob, that we think the women's side, obviously the men will kind of look after themselves. We know where that's going to go. The women's and the masters, I see that as the massive growth area in Canada, and that's where we want to be targeting. So I know a lot of what Bob Jowett thinks is in line with our thoughts, and obviously is going to be aware of how the masters have taken off.
And just quickly for Krista, really, do you see yourself as a role model? Because if we talk about the impact that the World Cup can have, there's likelihood that women players are going to be more prominent than men. Is that important to you, that not only do you get more contemporaries playing, but actually young girls might be attracted to the sport? And it's brilliant what's happening with masters, fantastic what's happening with women, but it's kids that we need to get involved as well.
Absolutely. I see myself as a role model, and I hope that I can inspire so many young children across the world to get involved in this sport. I say often that rugby has saved my life more than once, being able to have a social community together, to learn integrity, that there's a whole team depending on you to show up 3 times a week, work together for a common goal. And, how I think it's so important. And rugby itself has something special when it comes to that, because we look at each other as close as our family sometimes. How we have to come together to accomplish things. You can't just be a superstar on the field and do it all yourself. It's not going to work. There's just so many opportunities, let alone just being outside and daylight being active. I've been able to help my teammates with jobs, get involved in their community, exchanging books when you're in university instead of having to buy new textbooks. We support each other financially. If someone can't pay their dues, we come together and we work it out. And I think when people understand that it's not just what happens on the field with rugby, it's just as much what happens off the field. It is a part of the game. that's going to be a game changer. And if we can bring that to the World Cup and create that sort of awareness for the rest of the world, who knows where rugby's going to go.
I mean, the final word from me. Oh, sorry, Carl.
No, and I'm just saying an extension to that with the kids and making it worldwide there. And we answered the call to one of his athletes, Enoch, with his school, with his primary school in Kenya. And that's what I was just doing prior to this broadcast. I was delivering some backpacks to him, and he's going to take them over to Kenya for his primary school in Kenya. He's going to go over there. He's probably going to throw a rugby ball about with these kids, and that's going to gain their awareness to rugby league. So that's something that the Canadian athletes by themselves have answered the call to their fellow athlete, and we've donated backpacks to this charity. They're going to go across. He's going to go across, and he's going to start playing rugby league with these guys. That's another country with rugby balls, kids with rugby balls in their hands, and hopefully we'll gain some interest there. Not to do with the growth of the game in Canada, but we answered the call to one of our athletes and got on board. We're not. When I say my growth strategy is masters, and we'll work it out. We know the kids are important. We're in a good position. Hockey's massively expensive compared to the rugby startups, but we've got to work out of how we get these kids.
Could find the next Eddie Rumbo out there, Phil. Next Eddie Rumbo. One for our regular viewers there. Last one from me, and this is for you both. I'll start with you, Krista, because you'll know them better than anyone. With the World Cup coming up, who are the players who our viewers and listeners should be looking out for from Canada to keep an eye on during the competition?
Well, the final squad hasn't been announced yet, but people that I'm looking forward to sharing field with, if I have the opportunity, are some returning players. Tamira McDonald. When you interact on social media, sometimes there's the aliases that you remember more than their actual names. But she is just a beast. She works so hard. She became a police officer recently, which is her dream career, and it's just such a privilege knowing that you have each other's back on the field. So definitely her. Mackenzie Fain, who was also in the last World Cup. She's a great leader on the field. She's the president of the Ontario Rugby League, and just an overall around great person. And then, I mean, there's just so much that has happened since the sport has started in Canada. I just can't wait to see what the final roster is and how we can work together. And of course, me. I mean,
of course.
Just hold on to your hats, because I love those big impacts. Just shutting down those completions is one of my favorite things. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there.
I think the last question I'd like to ask, if you don't mind, is we've talked about participation. We've talked about the excitement of profile that comes with a World Cup. What about commercial interest? Do you think that there are companies out there, perhaps, even that trade between Great Britain and Canada, that you could persuade to get involved? Krista paints this wonderful picture of the wholesome nature of rugby league, its values. Can you turn that into cash?
I think so. I mean, there are so many local breweries, I believe, that we could partner with that would have a lot of interest. There are a lot of corporations out there as well that have opportunities to help sports grow for youth. The Canadian Tire, for example. I think that a lot of companies are looking to support their community locally. And if the only thing is, as Carl mentioned before, we all have our own jobs, our own lives that we're trying to work out in the process alongside growing the sport. So it's having a dedicated person and dedicated time to send those emails, follow up, and still be passionate about it. That is a little hard. It's hard to go out there and ask for money when you already have such a love for the sport. Like, don't they get it? Like, why aren't they just giving us money? Because it's amazing. But it does take time, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there.
Plus, we've got the challenge now, obviously, of what COVID's done to the economy. So that's going to be a challenge, is actually getting people to dip in the pockets to support. So I think we'll probably be starting small and then working up. Really, that's how I see it. There's definitely opportunities out there. I mean, ORL, any of the teams in probably Canada will support the local businesses. We had a local startup brewery, Expedition Beers. They came down on us fun day. They provided 2 kegs of free beer to us. So we got behind that for sure. We did, and we're happy to support these companies, right? And obviously, if we do a fundraising event, a sportsman dinner, or something like that, I'll be on the phone to the guys there to see if they want to come along. Obviously, not for free beer, but we'll do some kind of deal, and we'll have to work that way. We can't just be asking and taking money all the time. We're going to have to give back, and obviously, we can give back because we're rugby players, right? We like a drink. So a brewery is a perfect match because they know what money they're going to sink into us is going to probably come back to them when the guys start drinking their product.
And the service industry has been hit so hard as well. So, I mean, just having that symbiotic relationship to support each other it is the perfect time, though that's been going on for ages already.
Now, fingers crossed by the time we get to the World Cup, which does seem like a long time away now, that you're both with us here in the UK, and Krista obviously playing in the squad. We will open up an invitation if we're allowed then, if social distancing is over, that you can come and sit behind our famous desk in the our salubrious studios in Leeds, and we'll have another chat about rugby league. If not, we'll come and see you at a game anyway. But we wish you well with everything in Canada, and especially the World Cup. And thank you very much for your time, for sharing your stories, Carl and Krista. And it's been great to hear from you both.
If Rugby League World Cups are won on enthusiasm, I'm going to put money on you now.
Love it.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Richard. No, it's been a pleasure, and thank you guys for your time today. We know you're busy guys. Maybe not so much in the lockdown, but yeah, it's been.
Yeah, I had my hair to brush, and I had to give it up to come and speak to you.
I can tell.
You can tell that I haven't.
Exactly. Yeah, no. I think finally, my prediction for the Ravens in the World Cup, I think semi-final. Anything past the semi-final is a bonus for me. I think they'll definitely get to. I think they'll get to the semi-finals, and they could just sneak the final. Once they get to the final, we all know anything can happen. So that's my feeling. I hope I haven't upset Krista there. She's probably going to get on the phone as soon as we've disconnected and say, "How dare you? I've got us down for the final." But no, I think semi-final. Hopefully we'll get into the final, and you never know. We'll go from there. But whatever it is, Canada, Ravens, and Rugby League will be a winner, because I'm sure when they bring that enthusiasm over. I've got to work on a split England and Canada shirt, right? Because my loyalties are going to be really tested, especially when they play each other. So I kind of have to shout for both teams. But it's been great talking to you guys, and if and when we do get over there, for sure, we'll meet up and have more chat.
We look forward to it.
Yeah, Richard, Phil, thanks for having us. You both have been great hosts. I definitely look forward to hopefully meeting up in person when we're over there and having a chat. And Carl, as always, great to have you by my side. Besides that last little comment, because we're going all the way. But besides that, it's been awesome, and what a great way to start the morning over here in Canada at 9 a.m. On a Saturday.
13th of November, Anfield, England, Canada. That's the one.
That's the one. There you go. And just one final thing from me. It's basically for the Canadian people who are going to be listening is if you want good rugby league news, subscribe obviously to the podcast and to the 4020 magazine. These guys do a great job. And there you go. Props and everything, and brilliant value. So I've started my subscription. I used to just listen to the podcast, right? But I've started my subscription and great value. Get all the back catalogues. I'm a Yorkshireman, right? I look for the value. So,
this is the symbiotic relationship we've been looking for.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
And you haven't mentioned stakeholders once, so that Phil's very happy about that.
I wouldn't know what one is.
I don't know what symbiotics is, but I'm gonna have to look it up in the dictionary now.
No, I'm just nodding. I told you, Krista was the smart one.
These forwards are far too intelligent these days. It's not like the olden days.
Exactly. She can run a game. Imagine what she's like to teach. We've got thinking forwards. Okay, you're going to get to the final, Krista. We've got thinking forwards.
Pressure is only for tyres and footballs. That's what I'm told. So I'm sure it will be all right come November. It's been great to speak to you. Thank you very much for your time. And as I say, hopefully we'll see you in November. If not in the studio, then at least at one of the grounds for the World Cup. It's going to be a great year. Come on, positivity. Yes.
Of course it is. Yeah.
And love to scrum.
Oh yes, obviously the most important person on this podcast today.
Where is he? I don't even...
It's been very sad this past school year because I've had kids who don't follow the sport internationally at all. All they know is the Wolfpack. And so they've said to me, hey, Mr. Mew, it'll be great when the Wolfpack gets to start up again, right? And I've had to say, I'm sorry to break it to you, but the team's not there. And they don't understand that because we don't have that happen over here. You don't have a team in any sport just disappear. You would have a team maybe move cities. That's understandable. You have a team change owners even. You might even have the rare circumstance of a team splitting. So, Rich, you followed hockey for a while.
Yeah.
You might remember the Minnesota North Stars. Okay, so they had two owners, George and Gordon Gund, and the two owners disagreed on what should happen with the team. One of them wanted to move to California, and the other one wanted to keep it in Minnesota. And so the league gave them permission to split the team in two. Then they would get to pick, draft players from every other team in the league, and the one owner would take half the club and the guys he picked off the other teams to California, and the other brother would keep the remaining half and the other players he picked off teams in Minnesota, which was just unheard of. That had never happened before. And then a few years later, the one who kept it in Minnesota moved it down to Dallas, Texas, of all places. And now those places are thriving. One of the top players on the Toronto Maple Leafs is from Texas. Or no, sorry, he's from Arizona. That's a different guy. But we did have some people from Texas as well. Expansion to the different areas brought in new players. Anyway, listen, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
That's okay. So, I've just kind of promoted this half of the program by saying we've done the positivity and now here's the negative. But I'm sure by the end we will be positive about things again, because joining us from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, is our old friend. He used to listen to us on Radio Yorkshire. Whatever happened to that? speaking of things changing owners, it's Nicholas Mew. Nicholas, how are you? You are disenfranchised rugby league supporter. You've written about it in Forty20 Magazine, a chorus of abandoned voices, it says, and you are the one bringing us those voices at the moment.
Oh, and there's so many more. There's so many more of those voices. So I reached out to a number of people I met over here through the sport, people who were either Canadian born and bred, such as myself, people who moved to Canada from the UK, who moved to Canada from Australia, because of course we're a nation of immigrants here, and everybody was very eager to contribute. They offered all sorts of written content, and I had to edit it down, and that was the hard part. So there were commonalities, certainly, but trying to narrow it down, because I think at first I got about 4,000 words sent to me, and it kept on going, because through word of mouth, people would say, hey, Nicholas is after some information. He just wants your opinion. How do you feel about this? And so I would get more and more of it, and I'm still getting it. I'm still getting more stuff coming in. People will maybe focus on one particular aspect or another, but in general, you get.
We apologise for Nicholas's camera. He's got the same kind of technical ability as we have at the moment. But people can still hear your words. That's the main thing.
Well, my youngest took my webcam, and I believe he messed with the USB thing, because he wasn't very careful with it. So I will continue to try to reconnect while I speak. So anyway, so there were commonalities, as I was saying. First of all, when it comes to the team itself, there's no getting past the fact that Canadian fans are very upset. They're very angry with David Argyle. They love the fact that the team started over here. They're very pleased with that aspect of it. And we have a lot of respect for the fact that he put 27 million of his own money into a team. But at the same time, it was a house of cards. And we find out after the fact that players weren't getting paid, and that people, weren't getting their contracts honored. And there's more going on behind the scenes that I've been privy to, that players and their families have shared with me, that I'm really not at liberty to share. That's more for them to say. But I myself have spoken to some of the players, and I've apologized on behalf of the fans, and I've said, I'm really sorry. We had no idea that this was taking place. We would have championed your cause had this been known to us. However, what club is going to say that? What club is going to come out and say, oh yeah, we're not paying the players, and keep on coming to our matches, keep on supporting us, but in the meantime, we're not going to be honoring our contracts, and we're not going to be paying our suppliers. Then beyond that, though, you get to the issue with Robert Elston and Super League and the vote to join or rejoin the sport. And that was, well, the report itself was beyond amateurish. It was a kind of report where you basically have said, here's the conclusion I want you to reach. Give me the information to reach this conclusion so that I can defend it. Rather than, let's take a look at the evidence and let's find out what really is the best option. What's the best idea? What should we do going forward? So with that in mind, I shared the report with a wide variety of people, because it was shared anonymously with me. It just came into my email inbox one morning, and I tried to respond to the sender, and it bounced back as an email account that didn't exist. And I'm like, what subterfuge am I a part of now? This is bizarre. So when I read through it, I'm just like, my God, there's so much information here they haven't included. There's so much they haven't discussed, and it's cherry picking. It was so obviously cherry picking. The fact that they didn't speak to anybody in the Toronto sports market, they didn't talk to anybody over here who would be involved in understanding sports in North America, was incredibly frustrating, because it would be like you asking us for our opinion of another team joining, let's say, English football or British ice hockey. What would I know in Canada? I could ask some people over here who might have some connections over there, but who's on the ground? who are the people who are actually doing it over there? They didn't talk to Canada Rugby League. They claimed that by talking to, I think it was I want to say the IRL. They talked to them, and because Canada Rugby League is under their auspices, they felt that that would be enough. However, the IRL has a whole load of bodies, a load of national organizations underneath them. So do they really have a good handle on the sport in every single one of those countries? Or would it be better that they speak to the people who are actually at the coalface, as it were? So the so the report didn't include the voices of anyone over here. It didn't include the voices of the people who could give a better view of the influence of the Wolfpack, of the importance of the team over here to the development of the game. It didn't talk to sports marketers. They didn't talk to media people over here. So therefore, it was like looking at something from afar and judging it. And we know that that's not a good thing to do.
One of the things that I think was concerning from the very beginning and never really resolved, and I'm still not sure how it was viewed over in Toronto, is that the Wolfpack were made to start at the very bottom of a league tier. Now, you come from a sports society where you buy a franchise, you're immediately playing the best from day one, and you're recruiting at a level to compete with the best. Hindsight being the wonderful thing that it is, and I'm sure Robert Elston's using it a lot at the moment. Should Toronto have been straight in Super League with the Sonny Bill Williamses and the team that could compete and not have to work through the ranks? Would we have then had a more sustainable body for David Argyle to either sell on or get other investors involved in?
Oh man, you're asking me to open myself up to a lot of criticism. Okay, so I've got a slightly different take on that. I don't think that promotion and relegation itself attracts the type of wealthy investors that the sport needs, because a wealthy investor needs to have some sort of guarantee, some sort of safety net of income coming in. So if you are joining at League One, and then you get promoted to championship and you invest more, and then you get promoted hopefully to Super League after a number of years, and again you invest more, you're going to want to stay at that level because you need some business assurances. You need some longevity. And if things could fall apart at any moment, or if your income could suddenly drop massively because you get relegated, that is not the kind of constant that a business person needs. So they would take a look at that and go, yeah, you know what? There's no safety net here. There's no assurances that I'm going to be able to stay in the league. If you join a professional league in North America, you are in that league. No matter how bad your team might be, you are still in that league. You will still be part of whatever the TV contract is, the revenue sharing, all the rest of it. You don't have to worry about at the end of the season, all right, now I have all this decline of income, yet I still have all these financial commitments. I guess I better negate or better avoid everybody's contract. That again would be unheard of. To me, that is a combination of both disloyalty and also a little bit of it's callous. It's heartless, because you've got players who are counting on that kind of income. They give all they have for a team and they throw their bodies on the line. And then at the end of it, you're like, well, you know what? Thanks for all that, but we got relegated and we can't pay you anymore. So good luck. So for those reasons alone, I don't see that rugby league will attract the type of investors that would make it a financially viable long-term thing. So then what do you get? Well, you get people who are very, very passionate about the sport, people who love rugby league, or at least who think they love rugby league. And so, or maybe it's because they want the toy, shall we say, of owning a professional sports franchise. They want the cachet that comes with that. So they become a hobbyist. Do they necessarily make good financial decisions because they are a hobbyist? Would they be someone who is like, let's spend a crazy amount of money on the biggest name in the world because that will get me lots of attention? Or are they like, let's build gradually, let's build slowly, let's get some players in here and hopefully make something more stable, more sustainable even. and we know where that goes. We know that you've got not just your David Argyles, but you have other people who have come into rugby league in the past, and they've made a big splash, and they've put out some money, and they maybe have had some struggles, and they're no longer there. So, you know, the idea that Toronto entered at the lowest level and worked its way up, that was the structure that they were given. Those were the parameters, and those are the rules for entering the league. That we understand, and it's like, okay, if that's how it is, we'll work with it. But at the same time, it's not a structure that seems to be conducive to a successful long-term league.
It's interesting because I don't want to say COVID has come along at the right time for anyone. Obviously, it's a terrible thing that's happened, but it's given rugby union in this country the opportunity, which I'm sure, being the cynical person that I am, they've scrapped promotion and relegation. Well, they scrapped relegation this season, and they will promote a team if they come under the criteria which they allow, which no doubt will be Saracens, and they will be in the Premiership next year, and then maybe they'll ring fence off the Premiership, and it'll have 13 teams and blah blah blah. And it's probably what Super League was invented for in the first place. And has been under licensing but never happened. Toronto is a fascinating comparison, and I've made it before with the Sheffield Steelers in ice hockey in this country. They came in 91 thanks to the fact that Sheffield City Council, much like Montreal in 1976, bid for the Olympics, and I think have they just paid it off finally in the last few years.
Yeah.
The World Student Games in Sheffield, which were the biggest financial failure of a sports event anyone could possibly have thought of, which for some reason Sheffield had. And the great thing is they built all these great facilities like the Sheffield Arena, which still stands, and the Don Valley Stadium, which doesn't. And we've seen the legacy from that with the Sheffield Eagles. But back to the point, Sheffield Steelers come in, they've got a fancy new arena. They had to start at the bottom tier of ice hockey, which was the third tier in those days, and had to build themselves up to the top. Lots of traditional fans hated them because they had the money, they had the facility, they had a team which was too good for the division they were in, so they were able to win games 20-0 or whatever in ice hockey, excuse me, and built up that resentment. You in Toronto built up that resentment with the traditional rugby league clubs because you were going on and winning everyone and having the best team and blah, 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 blah. You've had abuse on social media. You have nothing to do with it. You don't own the team. You don't pay the players' wages or not pay the players' wages. How hard has that been? Obviously, we know where it's ending, but to just be abused for supporting a team just because they're not traditional.
I've done my best to try to provide facts, information, and try to be somewhat dispassionate about it. It's a little hard because there are times when you say the same things over and over and over, and it doesn't appear to be reaching people at all. And you say, well, that's actually not true. People would say, you came in thinking you were the saviors of rugby league. And I can tell you, Canadians over here never, ever thought Toronto was the savior of anything. We were just like, this is an awesome sport. We're really enjoying this. We're glad to be a part of it. People came at us with a chip on their shoulder already. I remember speaking to some really positive people and like really fantastic and supportive. And they said to me, well, you're all rich over there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, so they just assumed, they came at us with this chip on their shoulder because they thought we were all wealthy and therefore we were the bad guy. And it's like, no, there's people who are not high up in the socioeconomic standing all over the world. Canada is not loaded with wealthy people. And so I would personally get a fair whack of abuse, but I've been a teacher now for 26, 27 years. And so I'm used to, on the one hand, I'm used to teaching the same thing to a different crowd every year. And if I couldn't handle that, I'm in the wrong profession. So it was just like, all right, maybe I explained it to this person and this next person who comes along didn't hear it before. Fine, I'll say it again. And sometimes I know that when kids want to lash out at the system or when parents want to lash out at the system, I'm that person. I'm the face of the system. And so I'll take the heat for that. Okay, I get that. And so therefore, because I put my head up above the parapets, as an English phrase is, and people saw me as someone who they thought perhaps represented Canadians or was their way to lash out at Toronto fans. They did. They'd have a few shots at me, and there's nothing much I can do. And again, with my profession, I'm somewhat limited in how I can respond. I can't let fly because I might lose my job over that. I have to maintain, a professional standard, and so I would do my best. There were times when I had to walk away from the computer, take a break. It's like I cannot deal with this right now. But again, because I have such high hopes for the sport over here, I wanted to try to maintain as many good and positive relationships with people as I could. And so I tried to be dispassionate to a certain extent. There were times when I was a little sarcastic. But that's not going to build any bridges. That's not going to help the sport. So if I decide I'm going to level some scores, if I decide I'm going to tell someone, where to go, how to get there, and what to do when they arrive, that's not going to help me get anything for rugby league over here. And speaking of which, I think it was in 2018, and you might know the story of this because I'm so pleased to share it so many times. David Argyle and the Wolfpack were talking about, we're going to put rugby balls in kids' hands. Well, there was never a rugby ball placed in a kid's hands by the Wolfpack. They didn't even sell them in the store. We said, can you get branded rugby balls that say Toronto Wolfpack on them? Because I can take them up to my school and I could sell those like hotcakes, get the brand out there. The kids want to come, and so on and so on. We find out after the fact that the store was run pretty fly-by-nightish as well. Great staff, unpaid. But there was a team in the UK that did support, and that was Lee Centurions. And so I met in the parking lot at Lamport Stadium before the Lee Centurions match. I met there's my video again. But anyway, I met a whole load of Lee Centurion supporters who had taken rugby balls in their luggage to come over to meet with me in the parking lot at Lamport so that I could take these rugby balls up to my school and I could teach kids the sport, because rugby balls are rather expensive here, or they were at the time anyway. We found some other sources, but those were the first ones for me, and they were the kid size. They weren't full size, they were the kid size, which is the harder ones to get. And so if I was getting mad at people online, if I was snapping back at them, that would never have happened. Instead, I tried to join all the different social media groups and chat with people there. I've had chats with Derek Beaumont, who, on the one hand, he says some things and you're just like, oh God, Derek, please don't say things like that. But on the other hand, you're like, you know what? The guy's a character. The guy's a personality. The guy puts his money into the sport. He puts his heart behind his team. I got to respect that. And so you just kind of say to yourself, I'm not going to pick a fight with him on this one. I'm not going to argue back, because ultimately I think it would be better for me and the sport in Canada if I maintain a good relationship. And I've got like I said, I've got contacts within the organizations of a number of teams, just because I've reached out to them and I've spoken to them and I've said, hey, I see that you do this or that. Would you be able to tell me something? Would you be able to answer some questions? How could you help us with this? So whether it be a wonderful gentleman with the Dewsbury Rams, or there's yet another one with Batley, for example. There's someone who's just recently been hired by Hull FC, who used to work for the Wolfpack, another really, really nice guy. And hopefully we'll be able to continue working with them to develop the sport here. But anyway, sorry for rambling. The upshot of it all is, yeah, I took a fair bit of abuse, as a lot of Toronto fans did. I tried to advise Canadians to keep away from social media when it came to rugby league, because it just simply wasn't worth the headache and the hassle. They would be so frustrated by what they saw. But at the same time, I still needed it. I needed it for the benefit of the sport.
You mentioned great hopes, and one of the things that clearly comes through from the article and the material that you've been sent is that it's not just that the team you passionately cared about isn't there at the moment. It's the fact that there is genuine resentment about the sport of rugby league in Great Britain. And again, I don't think that cost has ever been calculated. As you say, it's easy to produce a report that says there is no potential, but actually, how much of the potential that clearly was there has been destroyed
by this report?
Sad to say, a huge amount. So we've got again a different perspective in Canada regarding the development of sport. For people to be attracted to a sport, they need to have a professional team. They need to have something to look at to see what the pinnacle of the sport is, and it needs to be nearby. You need to be able to attend it, or at the very least see it on television. So without the Wolfpack, without top level rugby league, we don't have the ability to share the sport so very easily. Lamport also acted as an excellent meeting ground, a meeting location for people from Southern Ontario, because I need you to, or not just you, everybody, to understand that Toronto as a city is not the base for the Wolfpack. That's just one small part of it. Because, for example, I don't live in Toronto. I live about 105 kilometers north of Toronto, and it would take me, an hour, hour and a half to get to every game, hour and a half to get home. And that's normal. That's what we do over here. If you drive an hour, hour and a half, even 2 hours to get to a sports event down in Toronto, that's not a big deal. That's just the nature of attending Toronto sports. So we would get people from an area that would draw in about, or sorry, not draw in about, but has a demographic of roughly 9 million people. So Toronto itself, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, depending on what you count. Do you count Toronto City proper? Do you count the Greater Toronto area? But if you count the commuting area where people are willing to drive in to go to sports, you've got 9 million. So now you've got all of those people who aren't seeing the sport. You've got kids who aren't saying, that was great, I want to do that. And you've got people from all these different communities who aren't meeting in that location to try to strategize, to try to talk about, okay, what can we do together? Oh, you're in Brampton, here's what we can do there. Oh, I live up in Barrie, or you're from Kitchener, or you're down from Peterborough, or wherever it may be. We didn't have the opportunity to get together. And it's without that sporting event, trying to arrange meetings is not as easy. So you'll say to somebody, oh, listen, will you drive 2 hours to come and see me in my hometown? Oh, sorry, man, I'm really busy that weekend. Whereas if it was, hey, we'll all be down at the Wolfpack game, let's meet up afterwards for a couple hours and talk about what we're going to do for the sport. That was no problem, because you were there for two things now. You were there really for the sport, and you could have the meeting afterward. So without the Wolfpack, I personally believe it's going to really slow the growth here. People aren't going to be watching rugby league. You're not seeing it on the sports channels over here. It's very niche. The market isn't there. There's no demand for it. And without the Wolfpack showing a Canadian team, there would be no increased demand for it. You're not going to get people who want to watch it because there's no Canadian interest. The time for watching NRL, of course, is 14 hours different from us. So I could get up to watch an NRL match at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's just not going to happen. On a weekend, for example, I like to get an early start around the crack of noon, but I'm not getting up to watch NRL.
That's my everyday, Nicholas. That's my everyday.
So and again for the Super League, watching that, if you have an 8 o'clock match start on an evening, well, that's like on a Thursday or Friday night. That's still in the workday. That's 3 o'clock in the afternoon over here. So we're not going to be watching that, and nor do we really have any interest in watching it. I was very disappointed that Super League teams didn't reach out to Canadian fans. A team that signed a Wolfpack player could have easily put up a quick video on social media of that player saying, hey, Toronto fans, I'm sorry I'm not there. Here's the team I play for now. Come watch me, cheer me on, support whatever club it happens to be. But there was nothing. And that wouldn't have cost the club anything at all, and might have sold a few jerseys, and maybe a Canadian on holiday might have gone over and gone to a match. But there wasn't that. Now on the flip side, back to the growth of the game here without the Wolfpack. I became interested in the sport itself because of the Wolfpack. However, our growth is going to happen differently, we believe. Most teams over there, it appears, have whole youth structures. They've got an under-7s team, they've got an under-9s team, and things go up from there. But when you get to, like, let's say the masters level, that's when people are aging out of the sport. That's when people are like, I can't play competitively anymore. I'll try to keep on playing through master sport, the 35 and up. That's our growth area here. That's where we are actually getting a lot of interest. You've got guys who are 35 and over who really want to play, who now have a sport that is, it's not full contact depending on your age. So like I'm in my 50s. So I'm not getting spiked into the ground by somebody who's got 100 pounds on me. My forward progress is being stopped, and that's good enough. So I can still run around and play, and I can get other people involved. And then we're also of an age where we have the time and we might have the connections where we can get others involved. There's a certain gravitas that comes with age, whether it's deserved or not, I don't know, but it's still there. And so I can say to somebody, hey, this is what I do for a living, but I also play this sport. Would you like to come out? So people come out and they bring their own expertise and they bring their own background, and they then say, this is a lot of fun. I can do this. I can extend the reach because I have connections here. So we've got somebody on our team who is a world-renowned astrophysicist at the University of Toronto. We've got another person who runs media at the Hockey Hall of Fame down in Toronto. We've got teachers in public schools and in private schools. We've got a former London Bobby who now lives in Canada and is a private businessman here. So we've got all sorts of people who are doing all kinds of different jobs, and they are in their own communities, in their own social networks, spreading the word. So from there, what we hope to do is build. We're in partnership right now with a union club. My master's club is in partnership with the Rugby Union Club. We're sharing a ground, and we've got some cross sport ideas going on. And they've even said, oh, you know what, this is awesome, because guys are aging out of rugby union because they can't play. There is no master's version of union. It's still full body contact. And so again, 50, 60-year-olds are like, you know what, my hips, my knees can't take it. I can't play this anymore. But they can come and play Masters Rugby League. And so they do. So then from there, we're able to have a clubhouse, have a meeting place, have our players. We can start women's teams. We can start youth teams. We can start open age teams. So we're going to go down. We're going to start with the old guys and work our way down to build up teams, as opposed to start from children and work our way up.
The challenge with speaking to Canadians is finding questions that have short answers. Having spoken to Sandy for about 2 hours once. So I'm hoping this, because I Zoom, we run out of time quickly on this. So I'm hoping this will be a short answer, and then Phil will come in with a great question. In 2001, when Wakefield were at their lowest financially, I knew that if the club had gone to the wall, and we had the head coach begging us for money at the time, I knew that if the club had gone to the wall, that there would have been some desire to start up again in League One or whatever, or whatever it was called at the time. And I know it would have happened because there were enough people there, and it would have happened. As much as Brian McDermott has said things recently, do you believe, Nicholas, this is the end of Toronto Wolfpack as we see them right now?
You want a short answer?
Yeah, go on. Then Phil will ask you a question. You can speak for 5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, I do. I believe that that's the end of the Toronto Wolfpack for a variety of long answers I won't go into. And now my video appears that I'm on drugs. So anyway, there's a lot of embittered fans who've said, look, you still owe me for my season tickets. I'm not coming to support any brand until you pay me. There's other fans who have said, you know what, we don't want to be a part of this club if they're not fulfilling their obligations. That says poorly of us. At the same time, if there was something over here, if all the debts were paid and things were to start again, yes, you'd build up and you'd have the fan base, but it's got to be done right. It's got to be done all above board, and all debts and monies have to be paid. So no, the Wolfpack's not coming back until all those prerequisites are done. I've got a lot of respect for Brian McDermott. I've had the opportunity to speak with the gentleman, and he is very well spoken. I've seen criticism of him on social media, and I've been like, wow, that's not my experience at all. He thinks about what he's going to say, and he gives you the courtesy of a well thought out, intelligent answer. And I have a great deal of respect for that. He doesn't entertain fools, though. If you come up and you want to talk garbage to him, he's going to just basically dismiss you, as would most people. But when when you've got that sort of public attention on you, that becomes the story. Oh my gosh, Brian McDermott told a fan to whatever. But again, that's not our experience here.
You've just described a perfect Brian McDermott press conference. I think we've only got time for maybe one more question. It's a two-part question. One of the sticks that Toronto were beaten with was they didn't bring a television deal to the table. People conveniently forget they were paying for everything else. How near was that to happening, and how much longer did it need for the Canadian public, and more importantly the broadcasters serving that Canadian public, to realise its value? And sort of along with that, there's a big debate now about the value of Catalan Dragons, and a lot of people are supporting the idea that for that to really work and bring value to the competition, Toulouse need to be in there as well, so that a broadcaster can see the value of a team every week and a derby between them. Was one of the mistakes we made not having two teams in North America, and would that have helped bring a television deal to the table?
Absolutely, it would have helped. So, and again, this is something else that's vital. That if people judge the financial viability of rugby league in Canada based on having one team, then they're not looking at the whole picture. There needed to be more teams, and that was the long-term plan, was that eventually there would be additional teams. And according to people I've spoken to, that was the long-term plan. So if you say, well, Toronto were never going to be viable, they were never going to get a TV contract, no, one team might not. But if you have an Ottawa join, if you have New York join, if you have another couple of North American teams join, all of a sudden, yes, you will have a massive interest. And for Toronto itself, if they were the lone Canadian team in a British league, there is another approach that could be made. So the Toronto Blue Jays are the only Canadian team in Major League Baseball, and the Toronto Raptors are the only Canadian team in the American Basketball Association, so the NBA. So they become Canada's team. You are not, again, just marketing to the Toronto area. You've got people across the whole country who want to watch the sport, want to watch the team, want to support the lone Canadian entry in this other league. So there would have been a demand for it. It just needed more publicity. People needed to hear more of it. They needed to learn more about the club, and then definitely you would get the TV contract. The downside, of course, or the one wrench in the works, was that Mr. Argyle did not appear to pay the broadcasters' bills, which is why he lost some of the TV coverage that he did. He was getting coverage. Initially, he was paying for it. And then when it came time to go the other way, he didn't pay the bills. And so therefore they lost the coverage. If that had happened, though, if he had the coverage, it would have grown by leaps and bounds. More teams, even greater. If you'd had Toronto and Ottawa, that would have been outstanding.
As me and Phil know, he's certainly not the first, and sadly he won't be the last to be in that position. Time has beaten us, sadly. We need to speak to you again, Nicholas, and I'm sure we will do, because although the Toronto Wolfpack story appears to have come to an end, the story of rugby league in Canada is very much at the start, and we hope you continue to support the sport, and we know you will, because you came over here. I gave you a tour around Wakefield. Geez.
Yeah, we met at Wakefield train station. You walked me to the stadium. That was great.
That hasn't put you off, for goodness sake.
Wakefield Kergate as well, Phil, not even Westgate, just the rubbish station. Nicholas, thank you for your time. We will get you on again in the future. And keep supporting rugby league. We know you will.
I figure with my age, I've got probably 30, 35, maybe 40 years left. So I got plenty of time. I'm still going to be supporting the sport.
Good man.
Nicholas, thank you very much, and enjoyed reading the article. I'm sure everyone else will in this month's 4020, and we shall speak again soon somehow.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
He says as if I'm not just edited this in at the end after we've just done the introduction. What a hour or so that was. Well, more than an hour of perspectives from across the world. I often think, I sit here and I haven't really travelled much, but thanks to the internet, we get to learn a lot of things about people from all over the place. And so many people love our sport, Phil, and it's great to hear from them and great to hear the passion of the people in Canada. I've kind of been jaded for a lot of reasons, but then people drag me back in and I go, actually, I do love this sport still. And as much as there are obviously negatives about what's happened with Toronto, and I think everyone was pretty much on the money as to why that may have failed, which people over here have said for a long time, and some have denied for a long time as well, as to why the Toronto experiment completely collapsed in on itself, and it's seemingly down to one person. But it's good to see that there's a positive outlook of the sport over there still, which is, we've got to admit, it's tiny over there compared to everything else. But there are passionate people out there growing it, and they have a plan. It's an interesting plan, and a plan that's hopefully successful.
I think two things struck me over both of those interviews. Is one, it's very refreshing, because I think sometimes being involved in the sport for a very long time, and the history and the politics and the rivalries and what it can be and what it can't be and what it should be and what it deserves to be and the injustice and the inefficiency of it all, you think it's something that perhaps it isn't. And then you get someone from the outside saying, do you know why we like it? And you go, that's it. That's the reason why I like it as well, and why we all started getting involved with it. So I think just sometimes having, it being dialed back to the very basics of why do we all like this sport? You get that from somebody who's new to it. So that was refreshing. I think the other thing is perspective. And too often we look at the sport through the eyes of the teams that we most follow, or the competition that we most go and watch, or the politics that are involved with the leagues that we happen to be associated with, either as fans or watchers of. And sometimes you miss the bigger picture, if you like. And the one thing that I don't think even non-expansionists can argue with is that we managed to tap into a load of people that until very recently had never heard of this sport, and for whatever reason fell in love with it and wanted it to be seen by a lot more other people. They don't have the prejudices that come with it for 130 years. They don't have the comparisons with other sports, and they don't have the, oh well, if you like that you can't like this. They just come to it with, I've really enjoyed either playing it, watching it, or getting kids or a social network that's come with it involved in it. And why should we deny them that? Who are we to say, all right, Toronto Wolfpack as an entity failed for business reasons, but we are going to throw away the opportunity of what we enjoy the most transferring to North America, the biggest sporting market in the world. So I just think having people like that on to give us their insight recharges our perspective and should expand our visions, if not where the game's played. And that doesn't happen enough. And again, it goes back to why did we want this particular episode in the first place? Because I think it doesn't do any of us any harm just to sit back and listen to the enthusiasm of the people. So it's like I said, if the World Cup is won on levels of enthusiasm, I wouldn't back against Canada. Clearly, they are very, very new to the sport. They're, evangelical to the point of perhaps naivety, because they are going to be coming up against the Gillaroos and the Kiwi Ferns, who are fully professional. And if they think they can beat them, I ain't going to tell them they can't. But actually, just to hear that and to think that's their driving force and their motivation, not, well, if you're successful, I won't be successful, then surely that's what it's about.
There's something exotic and exciting about the fact that in a few months' time, in Leeds, we're going to see, it's a bit like when, was it Belgium versus Norway we had that time at Headingley? We're going to see in the World Cup, Canada, the 5th ranked team in the International Rugby League women's rankings, because I read it on the website, versus Brazil. in Leeds. And in a sense, Brazil are coming into this World Cup as Canada did in the last one, as complete almost unknowns and could be anything. We think we know what they're going to be, but we don't know. Canada beat Papua New Guinea in that last World Cup. It's exciting, and we should be excited by it because it's different.
But it's not our place to stop people falling in love with our game. And if they end up taking it to a different level, or if they end up becoming more important than the teams that have historically, traditionally been involved in the sport, or the ones that we happen to follow, then isn't that a good thing? Why does that have to be a bad thing? So I think all of that, you're absolutely right. It takes me back, and I think we probably told this story when Scully was on the programme about 1995 in Keighley, the World Cup, when Fiji played South Africa, and really it was the first time South Africa had emerged from the apartheid system. It felt all very brave and new. Clearly, rugby union was higher profile, but just to hear that South African national anthem on the field at Keighley was a really stirring and emotional moment, because rugby league was doing it. We were, and then Fiji, who at the time we didn't know any of their players. We was mainly a team made up of domestic guys and a couple of people we'd seen playing the NRL thrown in. And then you walked into the press conference, and the most engaging guy you could ever come across was their head coach, and you were in a tiny little room under the stand at Keighley, listening to someone who was called Graham Murray, a name that sort of resonated a little bit further down the line, telling you about how much joy he was getting from coaching this almost novice but unbelievably keen bunch of people. And he was saying at the time, I'm not teaching them how to play rugby. I'm just trying to rein them in a bit, because they want to do everything all the time, and all I'm here to do is give them a little bit of structure. And that event, I'll never forget. So yeah, the fact that England, who will be one of the favourites because they're on home soil for the Women's World Cup, to at least get to the semi-finals, possibly the final, with an experienced group of girls who are not fully professional but not far off. They're going to have virtually a year of preparing for this World Cup as best they can with the restrictions that are in place. They're going to be playing a nation who arguably we're not going to know a single name when they run out, at a venue where the very first test match in the sport was staged. So you could not have a greater contrast of the old and the new. Well, if that isn't reinvigorating for the sport as a whole, I don't know what is. And I think we mentioned it the other week. The last thing we should even consider is what the result of that game is. No other, the Football World Cup, if Argentina are playing, I don't know, Costa Rica, who have qualified for their first World Cup, and Argentina win 8-0 and Lionel Messi scores 5 goals, we won't be hearing about how crap Costa Rica are. We need to adopt that same mentality and embrace it and enjoy it. And that's what having our Canadian guests has done today. I think it's just, given us all a boost that our sport is capable of galvanising people who have never come across it in a very short space of time and want to continue expanding it in their particular area.
The 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup, that great football tournament, which everyone remembers, where Spain, world champions at the time, were drawn in a group with Tahiti, the champions of Oceania, and Spain won 10-0, and everyone went off and went, oh, fair enough. I remember watching that game; it was quite fun. But yeah, they've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I am reinvigorated with the potential of this sport in a world that is changing, with what is happening in a place like Canada, where we've actually just taken away from them a very good reason why they should even like it.
And they're not picking their heritage players, it sounds like. So that'll please some people. But if you do have any Canadian heritage, give them a call.
I mean, this is the week where we've got further celebrity endorsement for the international game, with Anatoly Karpov coming out as a rugby league.
I reckon Gary Kasparov, who's very active on social media these days, I think he'd like rugby league.
Yeah, well, how many times have we called it physical chess? It's now physical and chess.
Yeah, not drafts. Don't be all these people saying, you know, rugby union's chess and we're drafts. No. We're 3D, we're 4D chess.
Far more cerebral.
4D chess. We are Kaplunk. No. Frustration. That's what we are.
On a daily basis.
And on that bombshell. Phil, thank you very much. We will be back. Now, we'll probably be back on Monday or Tuesday, and then we've got another thing to do in the middle of the week as well. So there might be a lot of podcasts this week. You might be sick of us, and then we might not do one for a while. But yeah, we'll be back sooner than you think. But as they say in Canada, what did I say in Canada?
Enjoy your Valentine's Day.
Yes.
We do.
Yes. Enjoy your Tim Hortons or whatever. Sandy, send us some donuts, please.